You're ready for your next Baldurs Gate playthrough. You're going to do the whole thing. BG1, Siege, BG2, which is really kind of BG3, Throne, which is really kind of BG4, and what character do you play? Now, naturally, no spoilers, you're going to make your way through a couple of playthroughs, explore the main storyline, side quests, this and that. We all have our favorite characters for whatever reason. Player personality, tactics. Maybe you always play a monk in tabletop D&D, so you're like, look, I'm going to roll into a monk in BG. But then one of the things about this game in terms of replayability is you want to explore different character classes. You want to try different builds. You want to explore the interactions with the different NPCs based on your primary tune's character class. There are a lot of ways to explore it. Dual class, multi-class, everybody in the party into a mage and play a primary mage and have a mage party. A lot of different ways to do it. So within that framework, revisiting the Jester, revisiting the Bard subclass, Jester, specifically that class, I find this to be one of the most interesting character classes to play, not so much on the first run through, because you want to be very active and very upfront primary tune party leader. But after you've played through a few times and you just kind of want to chill a little bit more and explore some of the nuances of the game and focus on some of the quests and maybe some of the hidden stuff, the Jester is a lot of fun. And I think it's a character class that often gets overlooked because, yes, while there are elements of role play in the game and there's a storyline, again, no spoilers there, it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There's a meta to it. Dice are involved, even though they're digital behind the scenes. So arcane canon sorcerers, powerful mages, jacked up barbarians, fighters, paladins, the numbers don't lie. You need to jack stuff up, and going up against, in some of the later modules, against very, very potent, high-level, classic Advanced Dungeons and Dragons monsters. This is no D&D modern baby cakes easy auto win. Like, some of those monsters are insane. Are absolutely insane. So yes, you do have to be aware of the meta and putting those numbers forward. The Jester really doesn't do that. But here's why it's a lot of fun to play, in my opinion. And what's posting this vlog up to the archive is I'm getting ready to start another run through, and I'm going to go through the whole thing again. And I'm like, you know what? I just want to kind of be a little bit more passive in its play and have some fun and chill out. So here's the Jester and the Bard. The Bard kit, just a sidebar for a moment. Bard is for where you're like, I want to do a little bit of everything. Like, I've played a mage, I've played a rogue, I've played this class, I've played that character class. I want to just dabble a little bit in everything, meaning I can use a couple of different weapons that I find through the game. So at certain points in the game, there's cool weapons that come up and they're good for that moment, or BG1 versus Siege. Then I move on to another weapon. So I get to explore some of that. I've got some limited thief abilities, so that's kind of interesting to explore. I've got the pickpocket for the lulls. Pickpocket is an interesting game in itself, just to kind of identify targets, steal stuff from targets, and navigate all of that. And later in other BG2, stealing from stores and things from that nature, it makes things very interesting. Of course, the alignment, how you're going to play that, I leave that up to you. It's different than, say, Neverwinter Nights, those spoilers there. There's absolutely nothing to pickpocket in the base modules. Now, I know Neverwinter Nights, just a sidebar for a moment, was a construction toolkit, meaning it was kind of like D&D Online, D&D 3.0, 3.5, 3.x, and the primary campaign, secondary campaign, they were kind of an afterthought for it, because you can't release a toolkit without a demo or some games. So nothing is available to pickpocket of note, but in some servers and some personal quests and toolkit dungeons that people have made, yeah, there's a couple of things to pickpocket. Baldur's Gate is classic AD&D, where it's interesting where D&D Modern, the rogue is kind of like to make skill checks and disarm traps. And maybe there's a little bit of pickpocketing depending on the DM. In Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which BG is literally the blueprint for, as a thief, we're not going to say a rogue, but as a thief, it was just understood like, yeah, you could climb walls. Remember when thieves could do that? And you could hide in shadows and, you could decipher languages. You've got your stats and things like that. But your main job is to pickpocket the heck out of everything because we need cash, we need gold, we need items. So it's interesting to see how that has navigated and changed over time. So if I play a bard class, then I get a little bit of pickpocket and it scales up. I've got spells. Now this is interesting because yes, I'm never going to hit as hard as a wizard, but maybe I have a primary wizzy in the party. But I have just enough spells that level up where I can use that to buff myself with my weapons. I can use utility spells. I can use offensive dealing spells combined with a little bit of everything. I've always got some different tactics to explore. So I'm not the best, but I've got everything. That's kind of the bard from that perspective. Now what builds on the bard is bard song, right? Being able to sing and inspire and stat boost your party, which at first glance, I mean, we're laying the groundwork for the Jester here. Yes, the songs scale, and later there's some choices of different songs, and of course the kits change that, but it is helpful because you've got the priest spells of the cleric buffing you. You've got potions buffing you. These massive buffs, every little bit helps, and what's interesting is the bard songs allow you to affect an area. Well, the Jester's interesting because as a bard song, for the most part, I'm either doing my other stuff, swinging my weapons, swinging my spells, using clickies, using summons, or I'm hanging out there and singing and buffing. Nothing wrong with that. But that buff, I can't do anything else. I'm in that moment. Whereas the Jester, it switches it. It's a confusion spell. It's a chaos spell. Whereas I'm singing that, there's a chance that the monsters that I'm fighting have confusion. So they get that little kind of, those little weird stars over their head or whatever the heck it looks like on your screen, and they run around, they attack each other, they break morale, they just kind of go crazy. It's interesting. It's some utility, and based on the rules, there's no magic resistance to muck it up. It has the potential, now I say potential, to affect everything. So this is this playthrough is very much, you hang back, you use some utility skills, you explore some different things, and then you hit it up with the Jester song and you watch the chaos ensue. It's not a solo character class to play. It's more of a support character class, and of course you'll have the party. Now this is where the meta comes in, and this is where I agree with it on, I was going to say paper, virtual paper, looking at the meta, but D&D, AD&D being a dice-based game, or if you've played a war game before, anytime you roll the dice, there's a chance for fail or something not to work out. Now, of course, that's modified by depending on the unit, depending on the system, depending on what's going on. It might be a small chance. But if you roll those dice enough, then that chance is eventually going to manifest multiple times. So, yes, monsters, when you're singing the Jester song, or you're taunting them, or doing whatever, however that manifests, while you're doing that, yes, they've got to make a save. And yes, not only do they have to make a save, it's at a +2 bonus to the save. That's pretty good. +1 is good, +2 is really good. So the chances of it affecting are at that moment. Now, of course, monsters have different saving throws. The more powerful ones there are, the higher they're going to be. So you might have to roll like a 1 or 2, figuratively speaking, for it to fail. But that will happen, and it will happen enough as long as combat goes on. So it's this expectation that I find, it's kind of like quivering palm for the monk. There's this expectation where it's like I hit Bard song, Jester song, and everything should just go confusion. I should auto win. Like, no, it's going to take 2 or 3. It's kind of like the shaman summoning stuff. You click that dance, and over time, more and more stuff appears and it magnifies. You might get a couple of lucky rolls in the beginning, summons, where you're like, where was this now? I needed this a couple of encounters ago. But it's a similar thing. If you roll the dice enough behind the screen, if I'm singing that Jester song and behind the console, it's rolling the dice, even though it's going to have to fail, and it's harder to fail, or against certain monsters really hard, ones or twos are going to come up. And if you played tabletop D&D, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is also an interesting character class for when you've played through the story a few times, because now you get to see the lulls of crazy stuff happens. Crazy stuff happens in that I don't have to worry about spell resistance, so I bypass a lot on that. I also deal with the fact that there's a lot of things that are immune to magic or immune to hold or charm or effects. I guess you're taunting them. This bypasses that. So you have some monsters that the game effectively, because remember this kit, this is from the EE edition. When Baldurs Gate was implemented, originally this kit didn't exist. It was General Bard. As they went to the EE and expanded it and made it available, both moving forward and moving and back, there's certain things where it's like it wasn't quite meant to work that way, but it still does. So there are certain monsters and encounters that were designed that were like, this is never going to become confused. This is never going to happen. And it does happen. And it gets interesting. And it's interesting to see how that works and how that reacts. So when you played through the module a few times, when you played through, 1, 2 Siege a few times, now you're in it for the lulls and you're in it to see what happens, to try something different. The Jester is a ton of fun. It's really a lot of fun to explore and play and use from that effect. I'm still not sure if the Jester is singing some sort of tune and it's like kind of a type of magic that enthralls. I'm still not really sure if they're just like doing some sort of Jester rap, insulting people, or if they're kind of doing the Kender thing where they can just like mad insult people and creatures go nuts and things from that perspective. Either way, however you see that manifest as a role-playing thing, the song is really, really good. And the difference in the kit is if you're playing a primary bard, it's either use all my other utility stuff and my clickies and my combos or sing my song. And I'm only buffing. I'm not really affecting anything outside of the party. Where now with the Jester kit, if I choose to use my song, yes, I can't do my clickies, my spells, my weapons, and my other type of things, but now I get to kind of sit back and watch the craziness of the battle to see how it unfolds and navigate it from there. So I make the recommendation, try the Jester. I guarantee you're going to have a lot of fun with these moments happening and popping up, not every time, but just enough where you're like, that's really interesting. But it's not a primary playthrough. This is like if you've been through the main story 5 or 6 times, you know where things are, you've got the meta out, how to map it, you've done some side quests, you've done all that discovery stuff. Now it's into the replays where it's like, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if I navigate this? What if I navigate that? The Jester is absolutely perfect for that.